Hi, my name is Jessica Lyons, and I'm going to be doing a science experiment using two different types of pans, cast iron and Teflon. And cast iron is my good pan, and Teflon will be my bad pan. And this is a science experiment on why should chefs consider what type of pan they're using and serving food from. And cast iron is a good pan because it can't release any harmful chemicals into your food, and it does give you iron, but iron is a good thing usually, so that's why cast iron is good. And it has a high thermal conductivity, which means it holds heat very well and it stays hot faster. And even though it may take about 5 minutes or so to start to boil water or heat up faster, that's good because it's a good pan for you. Versus a Teflon pan, when it's scratched or even just when it's at a high heat, it can be very dangerous because it will release metals and chemicals into your food that you don't want, and it's bad for you, and that's why you should not use a Teflon. And we're going to be seeing which one melts butter the quickest, cast iron or Teflon. So here we have an exact tablespoon of butter, and we're going to put one of these in each of the pans at room temperature before we put them on the stove. So here we have the same size burners. And we're going to be putting about the same size pans onto the burners. So here's the Teflon pan from earlier that we put the butter in. But if we didn't have the same size pans and we had a pan like this one versus this one, there's a different amount of surface area here, and the experiment would not be very accurate because there's a different amount of surface area. So that is why we have a similar size pan, as you can see. And obviously, since they're not the same pan, it's going to be a little bit different. But you have to make sure that the experiment is accurate, and that's also why we have the same amount of butter. So I'm going to turn the burners on at the same time, which is on medium heat, which would be number 5 on both of the burners. So I'm going to start with the left front burner and then also the back right burner at the same time. 1, 2, 3. I got stuck. Okay, there we go.
Okay, here we go. We're going to put them on at the same time. 3, 2, 1, go. And let's film, see what happens.
So they kind of look like they're doing the same thing right now. Like this one is melting and they're both like sliding around a little bit. But I do see that they're about the same thing, but we'll probably have to wait to see which one is fully melted first. But they actually seem to be going pretty fast. This one might be going a little faster.
And that's what experiments are about. Tests and experiments.
Yeah, they look about the same right now.
The butter was at room temperature, and the pans were at room temperature. And the burners were turned on at the same time.
I can't even tell which one's going faster. So are we going to judge on if it's fully melted? Which one is fully melted first?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your guess, Daddy?
My guess already, before we started this,
Was the Teflon?
was the Teflon.
Is that still your guess?
It still looks even,
Yeah.
which is shocking.
I didn't think so.
Cast iron should take longer to heat up
Because when we were in
and
science
longer to
class,
cool off.
we saw if steel or cast iron would boil water faster, and it took cast iron 5 minutes to boil and steel 14 minutes, but cast iron still took about 5 minutes to boil. Oh my goodness.
Look at that, that's close. That's like exactly.
Show them both.
There's a kernel.
I think it's going to be this one. Oh my god, no, it's that one. Oh my god, no, it's this one.
Oh my god, look at that. Kernel left.
It's this one. It's this one. It's this one!
Cast iron was quicker. Oh my god.
Because do you see that little one?
Yeah.
Cast iron is fully melted.
That's amazing to me.
Can I move this around?
No. Yay for science. Now we're going to have to go back to the drawing board and figure out.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, part of your assignment was that one's safer and one's not, right?
Yeah. But also, there was a very little amount, and it was very close together. And it was by
It was like
5 seconds.
Yeah, it was almost exact.
And it might not even show up on camera that there was this little this little tiny piece.
It was
in there.
close to almost exact at
Yeah.
the same time. A negligible difference in the heating up time. It's amazing. I really thought there would be a clear winner, and there's not.
So now that we've answered the main question, which one will melt the butter fully first? We've answered it, and it is the cast iron. And even though we thought it would be the Teflon, it wasn't like there was a 9-minute difference like it was when which would boil faster from our previous science experiment in science class. And it was steel took 14 minutes and cast iron took 5. That's like a 9-minute difference. But this one, it was maybe a 9-second difference. There was about a kernel of butter left that was solid, and the cast iron melted it quicker.
Go.
Here we have the cast iron. Ouch! This is still hot, and that's because it has a high thermal conductivity. And this one, it's not going to burn me. And this one is a bit warm, but there's a clear difference here. And those aren't the only differences. So once I get these out of the way, I'm going to be telling you the differences on why one of these pans might not be so good and one of these pans might be so good. But I wonder where I would get that information from. My handy dandy science notebook that I'm a good child and I brought home in my backpack from school on Friday. But what I am going to be telling you is that once certain pans can reach a certain temperature, they can release harmful chemicals into your food, and that is what I mean with the Teflon. And the butter hardened, but once it gets to a certain temperature, and even if you are lazy and you don't want to put your food on a cutting board, and you cut the food in the pan with a knife, it can scrape the pan, and our pan doesn't have any scrapes on it, but it will release bad chemicals. And I'll tell you more about that later. But the cast iron, the only chemical it releases into your food is iron. And the only case when that can be bad is if you have too much iron in your blood, but a lot of people don't have enough iron in their blood. So it actually can be good for you, and it makes your food taste super good. Now I would know because my dad makes my pancakes in it. But a lot of foods may need to be like seared on the outside and just get like very crispy, like pork chops or whatever. And then you might need to cook it fully through the inside of the meat or the seafood that you're cooking. And might just put it in the oven. This one can't go in the oven at all, but this one can. It can actually go right from the stove to the oven within like 2 seconds because it doesn't have a rubber handle, and that won't just burn to a crisp, which makes it really good for either searing foods or cooking them all the way through. And this is a very versatile pan. When this one, it can kind of only go to a certain temperature for a certain amount of time before it's nicked, and it's just not good. I'll be telling you why the cast iron is good. Just a few reasons, but there are lots more. Because first of all, it's a very durable pan, and it's also quite heavy, but it's very durable. Like, you might not want to scratch it, but it's not like it's gonna kill you. Like, Teflon can kill birds. So if you have a pet bird in your house, please don't use a Teflon pan because your birdie's gonna die. And the cast iron pan, like I said, it's durable, and sometimes it can be naturally non-stick, and you can season it with oil or whatever you want to do, but you have to look more into that. And even though, like I said, it can give you more iron in your blood, that's not a bad thing. But Teflon, also known as polytetrafluoroethylene, can release chemicals and dangerous fumes into the air and into your food when it's overheated. And like I said before, it's gonna kill your birdies, so don't do that. But the higher the thermal conductivity, the higher it will heat up, and it will stay higher for longer. And if you have a low thermal conductivity pan, it will create hot spots that can burn your food. So, like the cast iron pan, even though the burner was about around the size of the pan, there was still some surface area that wasn't touching the burner, but that's still heated up quicker than it would with a pan with lower thermal conductivity. And these pans, they won't heat up just where the heating element touches it. It'll heat up all around, and it might take a few minutes to do that, but it will still heat up all around. Well, not just where your heating element touches it, but everywhere. And it will happen faster than something with low thermal conductivity. Thermal conductivity on a rate of it, the cast iron has 80, a level of 80% thermal conductivity, which is a very good thing. So, keep that in too. Cast iron pan and the Teflon pan, which is my bad, cast iron is my good. Like I showed earlier, but I didn't really say anything, the cast iron pan is very heavy and it takes at least 2 hands to hold. But the Teflon pan, it's like something Rapunzel would use to like whack Flynn Rider with, you know. But like, he'd probably like get a concussion if you use this, but I don't even think Rapunzel's strong enough to do that. I thought that the Teflon would have lower thermal conductivity, but as we learned over there, the butter heated up at about the same time. But this one has multiple human health risks, and this one doesn't have more than one health risk to certain people. And this one can go from oven to stove, and this one can't even go into the stove because it has a rubber handle. Take a wild guess what year this pan was made in. 1967. That's a really long time. So this pan was made in 1967, and this one was probably made like 3 years ago. So, and then we'll probably have to throw it out soon once it gets chipped, and it's also not good for you. And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed my little experiment on why cast iron and Teflon pans are good and bad, and also to test which one heats up butter faster and has a higher or lower rate of thermal conductivity. And I hope that you learn more about pans, and you can now be conscious of what you're doing when you see your pans. So if you use this one at a 450 degrees, don't do that. But you can use this one at 450 degrees. So buy a cast iron pan.